I want to just very briefly touch on a few other denial of service tools, not to go into them in any detail, but just to give you a sense of how many are actually out there. So for example, there's DOS HTTP, which paradoxically is now giving me ads for Loader.io, the legitimate stress testing tool that we just looked at. However, that is not the intention of DOS HTTP. And like Loic, it is a client software product that's going to mount denial of service attacks from someone's PC. Of course, if you want to make it distributed, then also like Loic, you've got to get other people involved in the attack as well. But we know now how that sort of thing can be orchestrated based on some of the tweets we saw earlier on. One thing you'll notice here with DOS HTTP is that it was last updated in Feb 2011, so at the time of recording already more than 5 years ago. Clearly not a project that's maintained. And one of the things that you'll find now is that with the prevalence of both botnets and cloud services, which can be orchestrated to mount denial of service attacks, and certainly many of the online services we see are not just using botnets, they are actually using servers in cloud services that can be rapidly spun up and then use those fat bandwidth pipes that servers normally have in order to mount malicious activity. But what that all means is that tools like this are starting to become much less relevant. Same again when we look at something like Sprut, another tool that you may often see referenced as a DOS tool, but like DOS HTTP, and indeed like Loic as well, the relevancy of it is somewhat less today in this era of DOS as a service. And finally, a PHP-based version, PHP DOS or DDoS. It's just a PHP script. Same deal as the other two examples. And if we scroll down a little bit, we can also see some disclaimers here about the appropriate use of this tool. In fact, we've got a little disclaimer here about how they're not responsible for any harm that may be done with it. But as we've now seen multiple times before, tools like this, particularly when they're actually named denial of service, are really only created for one purpose. So I hope that these few examples here, even though they're just small ones, give you some sense of the ubiquity of DOS tools that are available. There are many, many more, too many to touch on here, but there have been a large number of them created in the past. And whether it's DOS tools like this, or whether it's more professionally run services like we saw a little bit earlier, I hope that all of this gives you a sense of just how easily accessible denial of service attacks are. So that's everything I wanted to cover in this module. Let's now go on and take a look at the summary.